Hello, everyone. Nightmare here, and this is Whale FM Makersplace Edition. In this show, we talk about everything and anything art and crypto in the NFT scene with designers and creators alike, otherwise known as non-fungible tokens. The Sherman Brothers made their mark in music history, having brought some of the most beloved family songs ever to life. Box office successes like Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Winnie the Pooh, The Jungle Book, and more. In fact, in 2014, their song It's a Small World After All was named the most performed song on earth by Time.com. But long before the Oscars, Grammys, platinum records, and presidential awards poured in, the Sherman Brothers had crafted their first foray into family entertainment with Inkas. Now, 70 years later, I'm joined by songwriter, author, and producer Robert J. Sherman and Sherman Theatrical Entertainment, who look to further immortalize the family legacy by bringing Inkas onto the blockchain. Team, thank you so much for coming on and joining with us today.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Before we get started, could each of you just give a brief background on who you are and what you do for the company today?
Well, I started, you already sort of did it better than I could. I'm a songwriter. I was obviously born into the Sherman family. My father was Robert B. Sherman. I'm Robert J. I was named after both of my parents. Robert for my dad, obviously, and Jason was for Joyce's son. That's why I have the name Jason. A lot of people think of it as Junior. If it helps them remember which one is which, it all works out. And I'm a songwriter. I'm a producer, and we started this company with Andrew Kaplan and Brett. And I'll let the two of them introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kaplan. I'm the co-CEO of the company and known Robbie for over almost 20 years. So it's exciting to work with him as we're putting this putting our company together.
Yeah, and my name's Brett Golden. I've known Andrew for about 25 years and Robbie for a little over 17. And yeah, we started this company back in 2020 with the idea that we are going to produce and bring to the forefront a lot of the Sherman family music and Robbie's shows and some of the family shows as well. Inkas, the Ram for Inkas is a project that is near and dear to the three of us. It's how we all met the better part of 17 years ago. And we, we're looking forward to this next phase. And with us, we have Jonathan, who is helping us with our digital strategy.
Jonathan, as Brett said, helping with digital strategy and an investor in the company.
Well, thank you for that introduction. In fact, you guys certainly are helping with digital strategy. You're in Miami for Art Basel and some of the festivities there right now. We'll get to that in just a bit. But thank you for the introductions. Robbie, if you could, I'd love to talk a little bit more about kind of your amazing family and musical lineage. I certainly have notes here, but I think you could do it better justice than I.
This year marks 100 years of us publishing music. This is our family, that is. So my great-grandfather was the court composer, conductor for Emperor Franz Joseph from about 1906 to 1909. He came to America from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and he ended up working as a violinist for different orchestras. His son was Al Sherman, and Al Sherman was a Tin Pan Alley songwriter, wrote for the likes of Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and some of the biggest songs of the 1930s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. Taking over the mantle from him, and possibly his greatest songwriting achievement, was the teaming up of my father and uncle, the Sherman Brothers, who wrote the songs, who for the 1950s wrote a lot of wonderful 1950s work, including the origins of Inkas, the story that we're here to talk about today. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But so they did that, and then they wrote country western songs, and then they wrote some rock and roll songs, and then they were discovered in 1960 by Mr. Walt Disney, and ended up becoming Walt Disney's first and only full-time staff songwriters. They wrote such classic songs and song scores as Mary Poppins, for which they won 2 Oscars, The Jungle Book, and Winnie the Pooh, which is a $6 billion, to this day, is a $6 billion a year franchise, with merchandising and all that goes on there. And so many other things, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, and the most popular song, as you mentioned, the most performed song, I should say, on Earth, which is "It's a Small World," which up until COVID literally never stopped playing since 1983, because it plays in the different theme parks and continues to play. But it's also popular on television and radio. I started writing songs when I was very young. I wanted to, it was literally the first memory I ever had, was my father had done a movie called Snoopy Come Home, and he said that he wanted, and I remember he brought the acetate of the record home, and we listened to it as a family. And I remember, because I was the youngest of four children, a lot younger than my older brothers and sisters. Actually, it was the last one, and and I remember dancing around and being sort of the center of attention to my dad's songs, and thinking, wow, this is the music I love, and I wanted to do what my father and uncle did, which was write these kinds of songs. And so that's how I got into the business. And I now live in London, where we've produced a number of shows. We did a show called Bumble Scratch, and then another show called Lovebirds, and we want to bring it now to the next level, and that's what this company is doing. With my own shows. A Spoonful of Sherman is a show that we did that talks about that 100-year history of Sherman songwriting. My grandfather's very first published song was in 1921. And now it's 2021. And so it's 100 years of publishing music. And really, we're bringing it to a whole new level with Sherman Theatrical Entertainment, the company that Jonathan, Brett, and Andrew and I are working so diligently on. And then there's this project, Inkas. So I'll tell you more about Inkas when you ask.
Sure. I just, when I was doing some notes for this interview, I was really taken aback by, first of all, everyone knows this music. It's iconic. It even evokes emotion, right? When you think about these particular songs, and how synonymous they were with just people's childhoods and their experiences. But, obviously being staff writers for Disney, there's going to be success attached to that. But even afterwards, after his death, when they were freelancing, just an amazing track record of awards and impactful things afterwards, even writing for Ringo Starr, right, and charting and doing some amazing things. So a really strong songwriting there.
One of Ringo's biggest songs of all time was You're 16, You're Beautiful in Your Mind. And that was written by my father and uncle, the Sherman Brothers. Yeah.
Right. Amazing stuff. So tell me more about Inkas. Understandably, the character and whatnot. I'd love to hear, your synopsis on the story and the character, but also its genesis and how it came about and what that was like when you were a child experiencing that.
Well, so this is, and that's a great place to start the story, because the truth is I've always lived with Inkas. Inkas was always very fond to me because it was a children's record, an LP, that had always been in my library. And it was one of these 1950s children's stories, and just so happened that my dad and uncle wrote it. It wasn't well known. It was first written, literally, it was the first thing my father and uncle did that was a family-oriented project. And it was a character that my father had created. Inkas is a Rhamphorhynchus. And a Rhamphorhynchus is a small sort of a cousin of the pterodactyl, a flying dinosaur, a glider. And my dad, in his trademark genius way, decided, well, it would be fun if, because he's small and he's kind of an odd duck, as it were, as dinosaurs go, when one of his wings goes up, the other goes down, which causes him to zigzag through the sky, which when you look at the images, you can sort of see, wait a second, one wing is up and the other is down. In the still images, it's harder to see. I think in our animatic, our storyboard reel, you can see more of that. It's still not fully animated. We're in the early stages of animation, known as the storyboard phase. But but the notion of this thing, it started off as a children's record. There were 4 songs, and it was all about Inkas, who is a flying dinosaur, and he's the weather bird for the friendly vegetarian dinosaurs of the lush green valley. And one day, the bad guys, the raw meat eaters, the carnivores, coming in, and basically it's Incas's job to warn his friends, because he's the weather bird, and it's normally his job is to check the weather to make sure that there's that there's if there's a storm coming, the dinosaurs should run into the grotto and the cave, and the friendly and the vegetarians are protected. The valley is protected by the lush green, the slumbering blue volcano, and this slumbering blue volcano is the protector. And how do you know it's slumbering? Because it snores. Well, actually, maybe that's not a good sign, because it might erupt.
Right.
But so it's very tongue in cheek. It's a lot of fun, but there's a serious side to this, because it's about the environment. It's about watching the climate and guarding it, and also watching our natural resources. So even though this was originally storied in the 1950s, there's a resonance that this has, which is again a trademark quality of the Sherman Brothers work, like Winnie the Pooh. It's still resonant today. It's still popular today. Or Mary Poppins, which the stage musical is still very popular here in London, and or all of their other shows and songs, and that we already mentioned a lot of. So this story started in this way, and then in the late 1990s, I was starting a different production company, and I thought it would be a great idea if we took Inkas, which had this history to it, but never really been made, and it would make a great animation piece for animation. The Sherman Brothers had actually tried to do a children's book, and they had added 4 more songs. So what was 4 songs in the 1950s was now 8 songs. So my father and I and uncle, the 3 of us, worked on the screenplay, and then that's when I met Andrew, who we raised some money, and we then took a few years, and then Brett became involved, actually as an original investor in the project. And unfortunately, the timing that we'd raised a lot of money for the project and for the first phase, but then the credit crunch happened, and so the project had to go on hold. But the good news is that we are now bringing this project back to life, and sadly, my father passed away in 2012. But the great news is that with this project, it will not just be the first Sherman Brothers family project. When it's made, it will also be the final one. And so it's a wonderful piece of history. This is an important piece, because it really is a piece of cinematic history, musical history. And the Sherman Brothers are the most successful songwriters in musical film Hollywood history, and this is going to be a major piece of that history.
Yeah, I had in my notes here and the research that they had written more motion picture musical scores than any other songwriters in history as well. So not only in this success, but just the consistency in what they put out. The story sounds very cool, and it sounds like something that would resonate. I have a little guy right now. I'm sure he would love that story and this character. When you were younger and you were experiencing this via that LP, is this something that you wanted to see fleshed out? Is this something that you had envisioned at some point coming to life?
No, I didn't. To be honest with you, my goals were, to be honest with you, my goal was not related to my father's work. It was something that when my mother had passed away, my father and I became much closer, much more bonded. We moved to London together because he needed a change, and my day job, as it were, was to work his office and to manage his office, and we were working together, and so I became very connected to his intellectual property, and I knew, I'm sort of encyclopedic with my knowledge with regard to his catalog but it was something that was more latter day. Also, my interest in dinosaurs was latter day as well. That's usually something kids enjoy early on, or not. I didn't particularly care about dinosaurs. I liked the Inkas story. I knew that, but really my real passion for the project began when I started writing the script for it.
Very cool. I saw, here it notes that there was a team of Oscar and Emmy and Grammy and Tony, every possible type of award winner assembled to design and give voice to these characters and the music. Is that what was started in the 90s, or what you're working on now to bring this to life?
No, this is of the new millennium. When we started work on the animatic, obviously the Oscar winners are my father and uncle. One of the artists who we are doing the NFTs with is a fellow named Tim Watts, and Tim Watts and one of the other artists worked on a film in 1994 called The Big Story, if I'm not mistaken. That was nominated for an Oscar, and then they won the BAFTA award. And so the art that we are selling which is part of the animatic, the original art from the animatic was done by BAFTA winner, Oscar nominated animators. The Tony Award winner so when we did the animatic, which is a storyboard reel, if you follow me, so you can literally watch the movie, 81 minutes of this movie, in a storyboard form. And all animated movies, that's how you start. You create this story, you create the characters, you design the characters, and then you do pencil sketches. And every time there's a movement, so for example, if I was animated, if I move my head, then you would draw a new picture. If I raise my hand, then, or the camera moves as well, that's another moment that you would animate. You draw a picture. Animation, however, is one stage after that, and that's when the move. That's why I was saying the movement, the Inkas, when he moves his wings, that will be something that's easier to see when it's finally animated. But you can see the skeleton of it, if you will, in this 81-minute animatic. So one of the things that you do in this is you create a vocal track, and you create songs, or you record the music. And so one of the singers is a woman named Frances Raffel, and Frances won the Tony Award for Best Actress from a little-known musical called Les Miserables. Back in 1896, I was going to say, no.
I've heard of it.
A little dyslexia there, sorry. 1986. And so Frances did the part of Dinah the Apatosaurus, and did a lovely job for us on that. So you can see how and then some of the other animators were award winners. One person won the Annie Award, which is a big award in animation, and so that's where those credits derive themselves from.
Very cool. I'd love to get into the mechanics of the drop, and then just have you take us through the pieces that you selected for it. So the drop actually is going live later this afternoon, I think at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, if I'm looking at this countdown correctly here, although my math has been known to be off a little bit. There are 4 pieces that you've selected to bring forward. And so one of them is a special edition 1-of-1 that'll be open for offers, for bids. And then there's 3 of 3 editions that people can purchase as well. But I'd love to show some of them and then get your insights into why you selected those pieces and some of the more nuanced stuff with regards to them.
And I'll tell you something. Yeah, no, well, I'll let you show it, and then I can talk about it.
Sure. So this is Run, Run, Run.
Drake! Meat eaters! Run! Here's money to ride! Run to the grotto behind the blue volcano. Run to the grotto behind the blue volcano. Run to the grotto behind the blue volcano. Run, 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 run. We're being attacked. We're being attacked. The raw meat eaters are charging upon us. So do not delay, or you will fall prey. Hurry and scurry before they outrun us.
From out of the woods, they're coming in droves. Come out of your cave and come out of your cove. With poisonous tongues and fire in their eyes, they're coming to give us a fatal surprise. The claws are sharp, the fangs are vicious. They kill us and eat us, and they were delicious.
So run to the grotto behind the blue volcano. Run, 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 run.
We're being attacked. We're being attacked. The raw meat eaters are charging upon us. So do not delay, or you will fall prey. Hurry and scurry before they outrun us. From out of the woods, they're coming in droves. Come out of your caves and come out of your coves. With poisonous tongues and fire in their eyes, they're coming to give us a fatal surprise. Their claws are sharp, their fangs are vicious. They'll kill us and eat us and say we're delicious. So run to the grotto behind the blue volcano.
Oh, Harold is terrible. Inkas was right about the raw meat eaters after all.
So I would gather. It seems we're in a pretty prickly predicament. A pretty prickly predicament indeed.
Run, 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 run.
So
That was very cool.
yeah, it's very exciting, isn't it? And you don't even realize you're in a song until about 3 minutes in. But it's what's so amazing about that sequence, and you really kind of have to know the musical the legacy of musical theater, musical film, is that moment right there marks a real departure from your typical stereotypical musical moment. You know, usually you think of like musical theater, you think of some action happens, some plot, some dialogue, and then they sing about it. This is different. Here, the music enhances the action, enhances the plot itself, not just the character development. Oh, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling scared, or whatever the emotion is. Here, you actually have a moment where the action is being told in the song. And in animation, that's especially important, because there's the three things you have to constantly move forward in a piece of animation, and that is you have to have fresh visuals, you have to have the plot line, in other words, the stuff that happens moving along, and you have to have character development. And what you have in this is all three of those things are happening. The visuals are fresh. He's running through the water, then he's running through the hills, and then he's running through a field, and then suddenly he's in the lush green valley. The two of them, Spencer and Inkas. Spencer's the little ankylosaur with all the spikes, and there's great humor in there. I mean, there's a great line that Spencer says, the ankylosaurus. He says, "The claws are sharp, their fangs are vicious. They'll kill us and eat us and say we're delicious. So run to the grotto."
Yeah, and he says it with such a great accent as well. I love the voice acting in that.
Yeah. Oh, Spencer's great. No, he was terrific, that kid. And then Lewis Williams, I remember him, a little guy. His parents were jockeys, and because he was a very little kid, and he was 14, but his voice hadn't broken yet. And and he was a little guy. He looked like he was about 8, but that was, and his parents were jockeys. They rode horses, and anyways, and so this song is precisely what you want in a musical. It may have been written decades ago, but the great thing about it is that it moves the story along. It doesn't hold it back. And so for me personally, it's one of my favorite moments. There are a number of favorite moments and favorite musical moments, but that's definitely on top there.
And what was the name of the Yoda-esque pterodactyl that appeared there at the end?
Yes. Well, I have to tell you, you know who performed. Okay, so he is known as Uncle Harold, and he was the old Weatherbird. And I have to say, the person who voiced him was yours truly. We're in a pretty let's see if I can still do it. We're in a pretty prickly predicament. A pretty prickly predicament indeed.
Nice.
That was actually a line I wrote. A pretty prickly predicament. A pretty prickly predicament indeed. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I'm not going to try, but I can admire your work there for sure. That was very cool.
It's all hands on deck.
That is the prize piece of this collection. So again, this one's up for offers as well. But you have 3 others that have additions. So this one is I Am Inkas. Do you want to set the pretext here or run it first?
I'll let you run it first.
All right, let's take a look at I Am Inkas.
The weather. I am Inkas, the ram for Inkas, the prehistorical dog. Though in everybody's eyes I'm tiny in size, I've got a big heart that's filled with love. For I am Inkas, the ram for Inkas, the prehistorical dog. And in case you haven't heard, I'm a different kind of bird than the others that fly above. I am the weather bird, and it's my job to check for, you guessed it, the weather.
Very cool.
Well, that's the title song. I mean, that's the introduction. It's actually how the film opens. I mean, it's not the very opening. There's probably 30 seconds before, but that's how the film opens, and it's very much in the old school of film, not unlike Mary Poppins, where you have, if you remember, Bert the chimney sweep spends the first minute or so speaking to the camera and telling you in first person what they call in theater breaking the fourth wall. And Inkas is telling the audience, I'm the weatherbird. And then at one point, suddenly the action takes place. And what happens in this scene is it goes back and forth. And then as Inkas becomes basically drawn into the action, he's involved, just like in Mary Poppins when Bert becomes drawn in, he starts talking with Mr. Banks. And so it's very much draws on that tradition. And certainly the Sherman Brothers tradition.
Right, and certainly will be one of the iconic moments from this production and whatever iteration it moves forward with into the future.
It's what's also known in script writing as an expositional moment, because you're explaining points of the story, and it's very clear. He says, when one wing goes up, the other goes down, and so you're learning more about that. In the next song, you learn about the location. But again, the challenge is to make sure that 3 things are happening. And as I said before, fresh visuals, plot line progressing, and then the character development. That's the heart, right? And if the Sherman Brothers have one attribute, it's heart. And I think that's, and I know that when Brett and Andrew and I started this company, that was something that was very important to all of us, is that we do projects that are heartfelt and Winnie the Pooh with dinosaurs.
Right. Yeah. When you tell me when he tries to fly, he zigzags and one wing goes up and one goes down, I can relate to that. So my heart's already there.
That's an interesting. I've never heard anybody say that they can relate to that quality.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the most agile out there as far as athleticism goes. I've known to be to have some other adjectives used for me, but we'll leave that for another time. Let's take a look at We Want Meat.
Okay.
We want meat. We want
A march of the bad guys coming in.
Well, that's. I think that the actual title of the song is "The Meat Eater's March," and a good meat eater deserves some. So this again is an expositional moment. You're meeting the bad guys now. This is maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the story, 10 minutes into the story, and so you see different characters who will become more and more part of the story. Some of them are background characters, but you get a glimpse at them as they march through. Inkas is on his first day at work. It's literally his first day, and he's looking out from a high plateau, and he's looking out a precipice, and he's looking out, and he sees different clouds in the sky, and then he sees this dust cloud on the ground in the mesa below, and he sees this thing. He says, "What is that?" And he can't figure it out. And the dust cloud is actually, he swoops down into it, and that's the moment that this is. And you see that this is the meat eaters who are turning up all the soil. And again, this plays into the idea of environmental consciousness, the idea that we have to be careful of our environment. We have to be concerned and not just destroy the soil, but again, on a very subtle level. And I should make a disclaimer here. I am a meat eater myself, so I have no problem with meat eaters. But the story, long before vegetarianism or veganism became a thing, my dad and uncle wrote this story, and that's what you have there.
Yeah, and Ever the Creative, you said meeting the bad guys. So I see what you did there.
Oh, did I do that? That's just sloppiness.
And let's take a look at I Smell Blood.
I smell the blood of a Ramford Inkas. It's supper time.
Dramatic.
Very dramatic. The music score is done by a fellow named Chris Walker, who we've worked with several times, my family. So the first time we worked with Chris was in 2002 when we first moved to London. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was the music was arranged by him, the musical arranger and supervisor for Chitty, and he did the work on this, and we'll as we continue on. So what you hear just in piano will obviously be with a full orchestra, and again, this is for the animatic. This is right after Run Run Run. This is the moment of the final confrontation, and this is when the blue volcano wakes up, and you don't really realize the connection of the blue volcano and the connection of Inkas. And I don't want to give away the best parts of the script, but I have to say it's a very powerful moment when we realize the power Inkas has, and it's kind of a surprise, and it is a surprise, and you realize that this is that Inkas has a great connection to the earth and to the slumbering not so slumbering blue volcano, who he's very bravely woken up at that moment, and or just before that, but now he's been spit out of the volcano right before the volcano is going to do its thing, and the vegetarians have hidden, and Drake can't figure out where they are, but then Drake is the villain. And if you notice that he has three eyes, one of the things we decided to play with was the original story was written in the 1950s, and in the 1950s people thought dinosaurs were all kinds of things. They had all kinds of theories about them, and that they were connected to dragons. The Brontosaurus, in fact, they believed it had two brains. So the one character who you only saw momentarily in this scene is Monty Brontosaurus, the leader of the vegetarians, and but one of the brains is the size of a walnut, and the other one he sits on all day because it's in the spine. It turns out they didn't have two brains. But what we decided to do is, rather than correcting all of this and sort of making it, more scientifically accurate, we said, no, let's play with it. Evolution hasn't gotten the kinks out of these dinosaurs yet. And as a result, our dinosaurs are completely unique and fresh, and you haven't seen them before. So Drake is a three-eyed sphenodon. Monty Brontosaur, when he moves around, he's got two brains, one in his rear end and one in his head, that are fighting for control and dominance over this massive Brontosaurus body. Anyway, so that gives you a sense of that scene. It's a very powerful scene, and you think Inkas is lost, but in truth, Inkas may just make it through this, but I don't want to give away the ending.
Well, thank you for that. There's people very captive in our audience asking questions about the story right now that I'll have to save for the end for you. I did notice that it looks like the coloration of this one is a bit more fleshed out than the others.
Well, we worked with this really stellar group of storyboard artists, who 7 of them, and I have to say, some genius work here. This is not your typical independent animation film, and these were people who worked on The Lion King. The animation, the drawings you're seeing here, the drawings that are part of the unique drawings that are part of the NFT sale are done by these amazing artists who were one of them is the head of background art for Warner Brothers animation, and it probably had something to do. I'm sure it had something to do with the fact that they could work with my father and uncle, the Sherman Brothers, on a project, because there really isn't anybody who is as close to Walt Disney. If you want to work with Walt Disney, you can't, because he's not around. But when we were working on this animatic, they were both around. My uncle's still with us, thank goodness. But this is connecting to something in the animation world, in the musical theater and musical film world, that's the gold standard. And so when we were working with these artists in that moment, because it's about volcanoes and color is a big deal in this story as well, going from the blue to the red. In that one scene, the artist asked if it was appropriate to use color, and that was the Academy Award nominee, by the way. That was Tim Watts, and I said, sure, go for it. So that's why, the different art styles in there, you'll notice that there's different art styles. That's because they're different artists, and that's all right, as long as the story is clear and it's telling. You want different people and their skill sets when you're producing an animatic to sort of go wild. Let it be an artist's forum, and you don't try to overly control the situation. You want to see different things. So, for example, in the I Am Inkas sequence, it may not look quite as detailed, but actually, to my eyes, when you look at it, what I see is, and it was explained to me by that wonderful artist whose name is Brendan Houghton, because he understands spatial relationships. And Inkas is a tiny little. This is important because Inkas is a very tiny little creature, and the dinosaurs are these massive creatures. So the spatial relationships, which you don't get yet, because this is, like I said, this is a skeleton. This is a pencil sketch. You can see the different that there's spatial relationships that are very much implied in these drawings and that sequence, whereas this is more like close-up stuff, and they both get across what needs to get across in this. But that's the key. So you want to give your artists free reign to do what they do well in this part. It's very, very creative. It's they sometimes call it the sandbox, because it's like where children play and create whatever they want to create. Sometimes there are tantrums too.
Right.
And you just hope nobody pees on you.
Right. Yeah. No. We just recently had a prolific comic book colorist on, and had an opportunity to look at some of their line work, and people were just falling over trying to get their hands on it, because that moment of when they're really working through their creativity and you see the ideas coming together is just, that's special. That's when they're really, trying to hone in.
There's so much. There's a song from the musical Hamilton, "The Room Where It Happened," which is based on the actually is a tribute to the late Stephen Sondheim, "Someone in a Tree," for any Sondheim fans out there, who sadly we just lost Stephen Sondheim. The room where it happened is such an important concept in animation too, because you need to see that pencil sketch that one of your illustrators, one of your animators created, that they thought was nothing. In fact, if you look at Inkas on the screen that you have right there, that face was based on an Inkas drawing done by a young artist named Greg Banker a few years before we did the animatic. And it was something that was almost a throwaway. And it looked like a kid, if he was a dinosaur, who just woken up. And it was this soft, sort of beautiful, innocent look. And that was the one. And I said, "What, Greg, what is this that we're looking at here?" And he said, "Oh, that's just we're just trying something." And he didn't even think of it. But you have to be in the room where it happened, because if you don't see all the papers that are blown around the room, and in the waste bin even possibly, if you don't get a chance to look at that stuff, and it's not something that's really facilitated by Zoom, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the intricacies of that process and some of the imperfection is what makes people's, artwork sometimes the most beautiful, right? So I love seeing the process, and I would agree with you wholeheartedly that certainly when this comes to fruition in whatever form, this is going to be something that people really, really revere. I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about the cultural significance of this drop, given the legacy of your family and what your company is doing, carrying that forward, not only being one of the very first properties that was ever created by the Sherman Brothers, but now your company taking it forward and making it probably the last iteration of one of their works. You're doing it by putting it into an NFT form, which really is immortalizing it on the blockchain. We talk about things being immutable and things living on forever, and this is certainly a way to do that in a whole new paradigm, a whole new way that had never been done with their works before.
That's right. And understand, nope, this is completely unique. This is an original story by the Sherman Brothers. It's their story. It's not something that somebody else wrote which is pretty much all of their other projects. Is Mary Poppins was originally written, had a book by Pamela Travers rather, and of course Jungle Book was by gosh, I'm blanking on his name now, but
Kaplan, right?
Kipling, Rudyard Kipling, of course, so my father and uncle brilliantly adapted those stories and musicalized them, but this is one that's theirs. Had it been made in 1951 or 54 when they did the children's album, it would have been the first time there was ever a feature animation film on dinosaurs. But they weren't even trying to make it an animation film at that point. It was just a children's record. But it's an amazing story. The whole thing. Yeah, I'll tell you a very interesting aspect of it. The reason he's named Inkas was actually originally Pinkus, because there was an actor named Pinky Lee who was the uncle by marriage to my father and uncle, my grandmother's sister's husband. And Pinky Lee was an early television children's variety actor. He'd been in burlesque, and was a baggy pants burlesque MC, and then did a children's show, which, by the way, Pee Wee Herman based his act on Pinky Lee. It was only on the West Coast, because back then television was very regional. It was early days of television. And so my dad and uncle brought this project to Pinky. Pinky Lee and Pinky. So they named the character Pinkus, the ram for Inkas. And then somebody pulled my dad aside and said, "You can't call him Pink. You can't call him Pinkus because they won't make the association with Pinky Lee. They may say it was. Remember, the year was 1951, and what was happening in that year specifically, the Red Scare. And people said they'll think you're a pinko. They'll think you're a communist. And that was something that you could be blacklisted and people's entire careers were destroyed. So my dad thought, well, okay, take away the P and it's just Inkas. And that's where it's not about the Inkas Native Americans in South America, as we're talking. It was about not being thought of as a McCarthy communist. And so that's where the name comes from. That shows you the 70-year pedigree of this amazing story.
I love that. I love that, as well as you guys having kept some of the nuance from the time with the dual brains and not really knowing all of the dinosaurs. I think that gives that gives it a lot of charm and authenticity that is just what we look for here in the NFT space for sure. So thank you for sharing that. I did see something cool. You guys, your team is down in Miami where Art Basel is happening, and I saw that this was debuting today at a specific show, and you guys also have an opera singer to come sing some of the music. Is that correct?
Yeah. Maybe one of the other guys would like to talk about this.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, we're going to be at the Nolcha edition, NFT edition, Nolcha shows NFT edition, and we're one of the sponsors there. So if you're at that show, please come by and see us. And the NFTs will be displayed on the WIM canvases, so we're excited to see those up on the big screen, so to speak. And we have a Peruvian American opera singer named Charlotte Ushella, who is going to be singing three songs. One, a classic Sherman Brothers song called "Want to Be Like You," and then she'll be singing a song called "Adorable Me" from the film itself, and then she'll be singing one of Robbie Sherman's original songs called "Adorable Me." Yeah,
"Adorable Me." That's mine. Yeah.
"Adorable Me." She's singing "Little No One." Apologies, "Little No One." So she's singing "Little No One" from the film, from Inkas, the Ram for Inkas, and "Adorable Me," which is one of Robbie Sherman's songs from a different show, which will be
part of my songbook that's coming out as well from Sherman Theatrical.
Exactly.
And this will be at the SLS Hotel in South Beach tonight.
Very cool. And I also saw that those who are not in attendance down in Miami, such as myself, unfortunately, I'm up here in cold Boston, you can still check out the performance on Makersplace's Instagram account, where they will be live streaming it for everyone to be able to check out and participate.
And of course, we wouldn't have gotten to this point, as you can tell. This is a very old project. Been around a while. We've been working on it for a while, but obviously the NFT market being very new, without the help of the folks at Makersplace helping us get this thing up and live and ready to go for tonight. So they've been a big help there.
That's very cool. I also saw that a portion of your proceeds will go to support carbon removal via Nori projects. Did you want to touch on that just a little bit?
Sure. I mean, the one of the projects that from Nori is helping the farmers with soil regeneration to remove carbon from the atmosphere, and Inkas being the weather bird, whose job is to tell his fellow dinosaurs when to sow the fields and gardens. Being the weather bird, we thought that was a very fitting way to kind of help with this project.
Love it. Very admirable, and especially being right up Inkas's alley, right? So very cool you were able to align the charity with that. Thank you guys so much for sharing with us. Loved hearing the pedigree of the project and all of the nuances that it entails. I have a bunch of questions from the audience. If you guys have a few more minutes to spend with us, would love to run them by you.
Sure thing.
Someone had asked, what's the timeline or game plan for a feature length film? Is it something in scope for the near future or something long term?
Want to take that?
You want me to answer?
Go right
Do
ahead.
you want me to answer? Okay.
We're
Well,
doing-
basically, right now we're doing a number of things. We have an Inkas children's book that we're looking to have published. We have we're looking at we're just a little bit shy of a big announcement we're going to be making for Inkas TV. We have a TV series that's being going to be pushed very soon with some fairly big names, but we're a little bit shy of being able to make that announcement. And we are actually speaking to a number of very interesting, again, a little bit shy of being able to make an announcement on it, but we have a couple very interesting partners who with big names and names that everyone would recognize to help us bring this to the finish line and do a distribution deal. As you can imagine, right now, with Netflix, Disney Plus, and all of the Hulu, and you name it, Amazon Prime, there are so many people out there, and they need content. To have something of this pedigree and this quality, more than the pedigree, is the quality that's just inherent in the project. We believe that this will partner very quickly, and that we will have a deal very quickly, because it's just it's that kind of a thing. The reason that we haven't done it yet is because we only started the company last year, and so we only recently the new company acquired Inkas. So things are moving very quickly, and it's very exciting. The book is now done, the children's book, the novelization. So that's what our timeline looks like.
Yeah, thank you for that. Not obviously, there's some relationship things, and you have to wait to make announcements. But interestingly, just from my own reaction, obviously, I read that question thinking, "Hey, is there a studio that's working on this?" And then when you had mentioned, some of the streaming providers, that even got me more excited, which I think talks to the level of quality being put out and the breadth of options for people and people creating as well. So I think that's a great thing, and it's a great time to be in the industry.
We need to finalize a partner first before we broach those deals, because
Right.
it's necessary to do that. But once we do that, we should be on a fast track.
Very cool. And in this question, kind of a similar vein, someone had asked, was there ever a time where another entity was looking at bringing this property to life?
Yes, it was my entity. It was called Red String Entertainment, and Red String Productions. It was originally called in Red String Entertainment, and Red String sold. But remember, we're dealing in the world of corporate things that you can't just say, "Oh, I'll hand it over," because we had investors who Andrew made entrees to, including Brett, and that's how the three of us originally met. Andrew, Brett, and myself. Jonathan is new to Sherman Theatrical in our relationship, but this is but yes. So Sherman Theatrical had it, and then before that, it was owned by the Sherman Brothers.
Very cool. Someone had asked, I guess they're pretty invested now after seeing some of the clips. Where can they see the whole story? You alluded to a book. Is there a timeline on the book as well?
Timeline of the book is, again, everything's coming together at once, and so we now have the children's book. I'm wondering if I have sitting around here. I think just sort of a mock-up of the book. It's in the other room. Anyways, trust me, it's about an inch thick and I don't know, 100 pages or so. And so it was actually something started before my father passed away, and finished up recently. And no, there's no specific timeline. I wish I had specific dates, but like I said, everything's coming together very quickly.
No problem. But it just talks to the impactfulness of the character and what you guys have here on your hands. So love to see the interest from the community. Are there any more NFTs planned in the future for Sherman Theatrical Entertainment? What else do you guys have in store?
Yeah, well, yes, yes, there are. We've got so the reason we chose this one first. I mean, we looked at all of the content and the all of the intellectual property that we have, and we chose this one for, I guess, almost obvious reasons after this conversation, with the history of the project and bringing it into the digital world and trying to get the story out there. But there are a number of other projects that we're looking at. Some derivative of this as well. And then some from, there's one in particular, I don't think I'm out of turn in saying it, that there's a project we're working on, one of Robbie's shows that was produced as a one night only event in London a few years ago called Bumble Scratch. And it's a very character driven story, very historical. And that's one that we're looking at to bring to the NFT world sooner than later.
I'm just gonna jump in on here and just say for that investors out there that we're very conscious of not diluting our brand and our NFTs. So we're gonna do things where it's hopefully gonna be accessible to as many as possible, but at the same time it's gonna be pretty exclusive. So like right now our strategy, as you see, we're just releasing 10 NFTs. There's one for one, and that comes with an original piece of work from the script, and then there's 3 series and 3 of each, right? And they're priced accordingly, and we think, quite frankly, it's quite a bargain with what we have here. But but the plan is not to just do 20,000 mints.
Right.
That's not what we're going to do. But at the same time, look, the Sherman Brothers is the family is in all of our hearts, right? We all know, we all grew up with it, so we are going to try to make some pieces, right, more accessible. But look, it's priced accordingly. This is a piece of history. This is, as Robbie said, is 100 years. So it has to be priced like that as well.
Well, I appreciate that context, and there's lots of people that would look at this as an opportunity to get something before it becomes synonymous with everyone's childhood and culture, right? So
that was our plan, a piece of history.
You'll have
right.
to people to it because
Yeah. Well, I'll be watching with a keen eye on what happens with the auction or the offers that open later this evening. Have any of you guys personally forayed into the world of NFTs yet and started your collection?
Yeah. So I mean, just briefly, the answer is yes. A bunch of different drops, some you get rugged on, some you don't, right? So it's, so I think, and that's why it's really nice from our perspective that we have that experience as investors and as creators. So we kind of know what investors like, and we know how to maintain value. Obviously the market's the market. So if there's a broad drop in the market, or if Ethereum rips and, NFTs as a broad come down, it is what it is, right? There's nothing you can do about it, but we do have investor experience.
Yeah, I will say one of the coolest projects for me was the currency that Damien Hirst did. Just because my wife and I are big fans, and we like the idea of having one or the other. We were actually both lucky enough to get an NFT. So my guess is we keep one and keep one physical. But that's been our foray. Jonathan's been helping us manage through that.
Just for the audience, if anyone's unaware, not to plug the currency, but there was an interesting piece of work that Damien Hirst did, and it's almost an experiment. You could either keep the NFT or the physical version, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. I think July 22 is the deadline. Don't quote me, right? But,
and they destroy the one you don't keep.
So if you get the NFT, you destroy the physical. If you destroy the physical, you get the NFT, and vice versa.
Yes, we have an active DAO here that makes decisions with our investment portfolio and went in on the currency as well. So quite familiar. Given that you do have some experience with the broader NFT market and the machinations of it, any thoughts on utility and other ways that these could possibly be used with your property going forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, so we were just talking about that, and Robbie, I guess you're now on the hook. But I think something that we could introduce, and it's not really in the actual package, but again, we will introduce it. Is maybe having some back time with Robbie, maybe some access to him, if it be 30 minutes or an hour, just to get the backstory of Inkas. And there's utility like that, and I think for this, that's what it is now. Now it could develop something in the future, and the only thing we'll say is, look, again, we're mindful of our early supporters. So if we do have utility in other projects, we will try to introduce it to this one as well. So if anyone had a buyer here, we will try to do a kind of like a pari passu and try to offer a similar utility. But right now it's as is. But again, hopefully get some access to Robbie Sherman and just background of the story.
Yeah, understood. As is, it's a wonderful piece, and I think lots of collectors would be lining up. But given that you guys are more well versed than some groups, right? That we see, I just thought I'd run the question by you and love the answer. So thank you for being frank about that.
Excellent question. And hopefully, again, we're not planning on doing hundreds and hundreds, but
right.
But we do plan on introducing utility just because there's so much you could possibly do. So for instance, if Inkas becomes a movie, maybe you can get 20 tickets to the movie, friends and family, or maybe if you even buy a higher piece item, again, I'm not take Inkas for any other project we may do, right? Maybe get front row seats as part of purchasing the NFT.
Right. Maybe people could go to a premiere or whatever, but that's down the road. It could evolve, but the point is you guys are cognizant of that. So that's very cool. I saw
another thing as well, actually seeing the movie being animated and being part of that exciting aspect of it. That's one of the reasons I got interested in animation, is to see an animation studio. There's nothing more exciting. So many creative people doing different things and talented in so many directions. It's one of the most exciting, vibrant companies and factories you'll ever see is an animation studio.
Yeah, that sounds like a dream just for myself, and I'm not even that, I'm not even that heavy into it. So I can imagine people that are.
We can offer a lot of people because, obviously it's beside the proprietary nature. I mean, who gets to see an animation movie being made? When was the last time you heard Disney doing that? I don't think they do it.
Right.
Maybe they do. I don't know. But we could do it for a few people.
Right. That's amazing.
Yep.
And I think this is a great one a great couple to end on. Someone had asked, how do you think NFTs could impact the theater industry and that experience there?
I think Jonathan just alluded to that. I mean, you can easily package, for us, what's exciting is we've got these projects either in development or different stages of development. Some have been live already. Some are going to be coming live again. Some are going to be on screen. But there's, being able to offer that firsthand experience with the, and for instance, our Run NFT here is coming with a hand-drawn original drawing from the animatic by a BAFTA award winner. And so being able to offer those kind of physical experiences, I think, is the exciting part.
I'm going to jump in here because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, both for Sherman Theatrical as well as the broader market. There's two things. You have the actual event, then you also have financing. For the actual event, it could be VIP ticket on steroids, right? And it could be whatever the creator decides. And again, we're the creators, so whatever we want to offer is something we can offer. And of course, we're going to listen to the broader community and see what people like, right? Robbie is, the expert, so he obviously would know what is cool, and that's something we could package in the NFT. And then also on a secondary side, it could change the whole financing market and even investment market. And I want to choose my words carefully here. So to be clear, there's no revenues associated with our NFTs, but down the line, as the market matures, right? But you're going to cross the line between securities and non-securities and regulation, unregulation, that there is potentially some component of revenue, of dividends, of price participation, of equity participation in the actual model or production. So I think, I think that's a bit early, but I think that's happening. And it's a matter of time. And look, us at, Sherman Theatrical, rest assured, we're going to play a forefront. We're going to be there. We're going to listen to the community, and we're going to see whatever works. And look, again, we're not diluting our brand. This brand is 100 years old, right? So this isn't a quick buck for us. This is a part of a strategy for our company, and we hope there's a value. And we're going to create value for Sherman Theatrical shareholders as well as our NFT shareholders. So it's a value creation strategy.
Yeah, I love that. You have that perspective, and it's not just a matter of monetizing your IP. It's more a matter of, hey, let's take this into, the next iteration of tech and into the future and be at the forefront of where culture will be, whether it's children and people that are there now on the precipice of cultural change and how people are consuming. So very, very cool. And I guess to wrap go ahead,
Robbie.
On the
precipice. I would say we were on the precipice of the 2nd century of the Sherman family musical dynasty, speaking as a Sherman.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great lead into kind of the final question. I've had a number of these that are kind of in the same vein, so I'll try to paraphrase them a little bit. Obviously, coming from a tremendous legacy of cultural impact with your family, how do you envision what you'll be doing with Sherman Theatrical Entertainment moving forward, and how you'll forge your path and impact the culture here?
So our company, we're still in nascent days, but it's but there's two directions that we're focusing on very much. One is our music licensing, and which is obviously a big sector right now. And so the idea of taking certain pieces that we own from my grandfathers, my fathers, and my own estate. Which has been the rights Sherman Theatrical has on these songs, and exploiting them. Some of those 1950s songs, for example, the Sherman Brothers, my songs, my grandfather's songs from the many decades that he worked. We're also taking different shows, including Inkas, including other things. But the other side that we're working on, and really what I think is very exciting from a creative point of view, is the theatrical shows. So we have I'm in London, England, and of course there are two cities where you start musicals. One is London, one is New York. New York's probably a little more famous in the States, but London's just as powerful. That's where Andrew Lloyd Webber started all his shows, and Cameron Mackintosh, and those are two of the biggest show creators in the world. So the idea is that we're going to be doing new and established musicals, stage musicals, and that will be a major part of the engine of excitement for the music licensing that we're doing as well. So even though we say we're focusing on two different aspects, really the two of them feed each other, because you take these songs that are in these hopefully very popular shows, and we'll be licensing them to young singers, maybe doing pop songs, versions of different things. We in the new songbook that's coming out next week, one of the songs is sung by the Olivier Award winners, like the Tonys of Great Britain, of London. West End musicals, from Dear Evan Hansen. The star of Dear Evan Hansen, the titular role, is played by a fellow named Sam Tuddy, and he sang a big band version of one of my songs. So it's that kind of a thing where you take songs that are in one genre, and you place them in other places, and in more pop genres. And because this one was actually sort of a big band version of this song, called Heart of a Stranger. I don't know if you can mention, we have a website. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can hear all about this. And there's a lot of stuff happening with the music publishing side. So the songbook is coming out next week, 16 original songs. So by the up and coming stars of the West End in London. So and then they're going to be performed, I believe, by some Broadway individuals as well, in the new year.
Very cool. And you guys have a unique opportunity to marry that tremendous creative power that you have, as well as leverage the legacy along with experiential stuff in the fine arts world with theater that I really haven't seen, the NFT technology and what blockchain could enable for creatives use there. So you are in a great position. But let's get back to today for sure. We want to make sure that everyone that wants to participate knows that the Inkas drop is happening in less than 4 hours now on Makersplace. 4 amazing pieces. One is a one of its kind, and it comes with a original piece of artwork as well. And then there'll be 3 editions of some of the individual pieces. You can go ahead to Makersplace on the drops page and take a look at it. And again, this will go live at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're in Miami, check out a live performance of some of the music this evening, or check it out on the Makersplace Instagram account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, anything else you want to leave the hungry public for more Inkas with? If not, thank you. I'll let you get back to what you're doing down there in Miami, and Robbie, what you're doing in London. And thank you so much for sharing with us this afternoon.
Excellent. I'll just add, if there's any feedback whatsoever, we're happy to listen to the community. If there's questions in the NFTs or if there's suggestions in a community project, right? So we're happy to listen to what people say. So I guess we'll let you figure out how to get in touch with us, and you know, again, we'll use feedback and just make sure, you know, things work for everyone.
And Nightmare, thank you to you and your listeners, and to Makerspace again for helping us get to this point and for helping us with this broadcast.
We appreciate your time today and your audience's time.
Thank you so much.
Yep, and thank you guys for sharing with us and sharing Inkas. Can't wait to see more. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank you.